I was cleaning out my wallet when I found a receipt from a cafe I'd never been to. It was crumpled and faded, tucked behind expired insurance cards and business cards from people I couldn't remember meeting. On the front, the name The Second Cup, and a date from 6 months ago. On the back, in careful handwriting, come back when you're ready to start over. I stared at it for a long time. I'd never been to this cafe. I was sure of it, but something about those words, ready to start over, made my chest tight. I went there out of curiosity, expecting nothing. When I walked in, the woman behind the counter looked up, smiled, and said, "I was wondering when you'd come." Before we dive in, have you ever felt like you needed to start over but didn't know how? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you love stories about second chances, unexpected guidance, and finding your way back to yourself, please subscribe so you don't miss our next one. Now, let me take you back to the day I found a receipt that changed my life. I'd become exactly the kind of journalist I used to despise. I worked for a digital media company called BuzzStream, one of those content mills that churned out endless clickbait articles designed to generate ad revenue. My job was to write sensationalist headlines and shallow stories that people would share without reading. You won't believe what this celebrity did. And this one weird trick doctors don't want you to know. It was garbage. I knew it was garbage. But it paid $68,000 a year, and I'd convinced myself that was enough. It hadn't always been like this. When I'd graduated from journalism school 15 years ago, I'd had dreams. Real dreams. I wanted to do investigative journalism, the kind that uncovered corruption, told important stories, made a difference. I wanted to write pieces that mattered, that changed things, that lasted longer than the 15 seconds it took someone to scroll past them. But investigative journalism didn't pay. The jobs were scarce and competitive. After a year of freelancing and barely making rent, I'd taken a job at a local news website, then a bigger news site, then BuzzStream, where the money was better but the work was soul-crushing. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd save up money and then pursue the work I actually cared about. But 15 years had passed, and I was still writing articles about celebrity gossip and viral trends, and the part of me that had once cared about journalism was almost completely dead. The only good part about this job was my girlfriend Mavie, who worked as a nutritionist at the same office building. We met for the first time in the elevator, and we still continued to meet there every day after work. How was work? She asked me, after getting into the elevator and giving me a little kiss. Fine. Same as always. Are you happy there? I'm fine, but I wasn't fine. I was miserable. I was cynical. I woke up every morning, dreading the day ahead, spent 8 hours writing articles I didn't care about, then came home too tired and hollow to do anything meaningful with my evenings. I'd stopped reading books, stopped following real news, stopped caring about anything beyond the numbing routine of work and sleep and work again. On a Saturday in March, I was alone at my apartment. Mavie was out of town at a conference, and I had all day to myself. I decided to clean out my wallet. It had gotten ridiculously thick with old receipts, expired cards, and random scraps of paper I'd shoved in there and forgotten about. I sat at my kitchen table with everything spread out in front of me, sorting through the debris of my daily life. Most of it went straight into the trash. But then I found a receipt that made me stop. It was from a place called The Second Cup in Phoenix. The date stamp said September 14th, 6 months ago. The amount was $4.50, paid in cash. I'd never been to a cafe called The Second Cup. I was certain of that. I would have remembered. But what really caught my attention was the writing on the back. In neat, flowing handwriting, someone had written, "Come back when you're ready to start over." I turned the receipt over in my hands, trying to understand. How did this get in my wallet? Had someone slipped it in there? Had I picked it up somewhere by mistake? Ready to start over. The words felt significant in a way I couldn't articulate, like they'd been written specifically for me, like they knew something about me I'd been trying not to know about myself. I pulled out my phone and Googled The Second Cup Phoenix. It existed, a small cafe in the Arcadia neighborhood, about 20 minutes from my apartment. The photos showed a cozy space with wood furniture, plants hanging in the windows, and a chalkboard menu. It looked charming in a way most cafes weren't. Not trendy or Instagram perfect, just warm and genuine. I should have thrown the receipt away. It was obviously a mistake, something that had ended up in my wallet through some mundane mix-up I couldn't remember. But I didn't throw it away. I kept looking at those words. Come back when you're ready to start over. What if I went? What if I just drove over there out of curiosity to see what this place was? That's insane, I said out loud to my empty apartment. You're going to drive across town because of a random receipt? But I was already grabbing my keys. I didn't have anything to do. The drive to Arcadia took 25 minutes through Saturday morning traffic. The neighborhood was quiet and residential, with older homes and tree-lined streets that felt miles away from the newer, more commercial parts of Phoenix I usually frequented. The Second Cup was in a small strip of local businesses. From the outside, it looked exactly like the photos, unpretentious, welcoming, the kind of place that had been there for years and would probably be there for years more. I parked and sat in my car for a moment, feeling ridiculous. What was I doing here? What did I expect to find? But I'd come this far. I got out of the car and went inside. The cafe was everything its exterior promised. Small, maybe 10 tables, with worn wooden floors and walls covered in local art. It smelled like coffee and fresh bread. Soft jazz played from speakers I couldn't see. There were a handful of people scattered at different tables, reading or working on laptops. The comfortable silence of people who came here regularly. Behind the counter was a woman in her 60s, with gray hair pulled back in a loose bun and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She was wiping down the espresso machine when I walked in. She looked up, saw me, and smiled. Not the automatic customer service smile. A real smile. A smile of recognition. "I was wondering when you'd come," she said. I stopped. "What? You're here for coffee, I assume? What can I get you?" "I've never been here before." "I know, but I've been expecting you." She said it matter-of-factly, like this was a completely normal thing to say to a stranger. "I'm June. Welcome to the second cup." I approached the counter slowly, holding up the receipt. "I found this in my wallet. I don't know how it got there, but it had a message on the back and I was curious." June took the receipt, looked at it, and handed it back. "That's my handwriting. I wrote that about 6 months ago, but I've never been here. How could you have given me this?" "I didn't give it to you directly, but I knew you'd find it when you were ready." "What do you mean?" "What matters is you're here now, so what can I get you?" I felt like I'd walked into the middle of a play without knowing my lines. "Just coffee, black, coming right up. Have a seat anywhere. I'll bring it over." I found a table by the window and sat down, completely disoriented. None of this made sense. June brought my coffee a few minutes later, along with a blueberry muffin I hadn't ordered. "On the house," she said, setting it down. "You look like you could use something sweet." "Thank you, but I'm really confused. Can you tell me what's going on?" June sat down across from me, which surprised me. The cafe wasn't busy, but it still seemed unusual for the barista to just sit with a customer. "It has come to my attention that you were lost, that you'd forgotten who you were supposed to be. So I wondered if there was anything I could do to help. I knew the only person who could help you was you, but maybe a nudge in the right direction wouldn't hurt. So I wrote that message, and I waited. Waited for what? For you to be ready. You could have thrown that receipt away. You could have found it and ignored it. But you didn't. You came here. That means something. It means I was curious about a weird receipt in my wallet. Or it means you're ready to start over, even if you don't fully know it yet." I sipped my coffee. It was excellent. Rich and smooth in a way the chain coffee I usually drank never was. I don't even know what starting over would look like. That's okay. Most people don't when they first get here. But this place has a way of helping people figure it out. If they let it. This place? What is this place? June smiled. It's a cafe. But it's also a place where people come when they need to remember something they've forgotten. Usually something about themselves. That's very poetic and very vague. Fair enough. How about this? Come back. Don't just come once out of curiosity. Come back a few times. Sit. Drink coffee. See what happens. No pressure. No expectations. Just see. And if nothing happens, then you got some good coffee out of it. I should have left after finishing my coffee. I should have written this off as a weird experience and gone back to my normal life. But something about June's warmth about the cafe itself made me want to stay. So I did. I sat there for 2 hours, just drinking coffee and watching people come and go. I noticed something. Everyone who came in seemed to know June, and June seemed to know them, not just their orders, but something deeper. She asked the right questions, said the right things, had the right kind of silence when silence was needed. When I finally left, June called out, "Come back soon, Oliver." I stopped at the door. "How do you know my name?" She just smiled. "See you next time." I went back 3 days later. I told myself it was because the coffee was good and I had nothing better to do on a Wednesday afternoon. But really, I was curious about June, about the cafe, about the strange pull I felt to return. June greeted me like an old friend. "Oliver, good to see you." "Your usual?" "I've only been here once. Black coffee, no sugar." "That's a usual in my book." I sat at the same table by the window. June brought my coffee and, without asking, sat down across from me again. "So," she said, "tell me about your work." "Why?" "Because work is where most people lose themselves. And I'm guessing that's where you lost yourself too." I could have deflected. Could have given her the standard answer I gave everyone. "It's fine. Pays the bills." But something about June's directness, her complete lack of judgment, made me tell the truth. I'm a journalist. At least that's what I tell myself. Really, I write clickbait articles for a content mill. Sensational headlines, shallow stories, nothing that matters. I wanted to do investigative journalism, real reporting that uncovered important stories, but that doesn't pay. So I took a job that did pay, and now I'm 38 years old and I've spent 15 years writing garbage. Do you still want to do the real journalism? I don't know. Maybe I've been doing this for so long I've forgotten how to do anything else. Or maybe I never had what it takes in the first place, and this is just where I belong. You don't believe that. How do you know what I believe? Because if you believed that, you wouldn't be here. You'd be content with your garbage job and your paychecks. But you're not content. You're miserable. And you know you're capable of more. You're just scared. The bluntness of it stung. Scared of what? Of trying and failing. Of discovering that maybe you're not as good as you once thought you'd be. Of leaving security for uncertainty. Of being broke again. Pick your fear. I'm guessing you have several. She was right. I had all of those fears and more. So what do? I asked. That's the wrong question. The question isn't, what do you do? It's what do you want? If nothing was stopping you, no fear, no money worries, no voice in your head telling you to settle, what would you want to do? I didn't even have to think about it. I'd want to tell stories that matter. Real stories about real people and real issues. Stories that take time to research and report properly. Stories that might actually change something or help someone understand the world better. I'd want to do the kind of journalism I used to dream about doing before I convinced myself it was impossible. Then do that. It's not that simple. It is that simple. Not easy, but simple. You want to do real journalism? Start doing it. You don't need permission. You don't need a fancy job at a prestigious publication. You just need to start. I can't just quit my job. I have rent. Bills? I didn't say quit your job. I said start doing the work you actually care about. Even if it's just one story, even if it's just for yourself at first. Start doing the work and see what happens. Over the next several weeks, I went to the Second Cup almost every afternoon after work. Mamie was studying for her specialization course, so she didn't ask too many questions. It became part of my routine, something I looked forward to in a way I hadn't looked forward to anything in years. I started noticing the other regulars. There was Mario, a middle-aged man who'd left a corporate law career to become a high school teacher. There was Adriana, an artist who'd stopped painting for 10 years after a brutal critique and was slowly finding her way back. There was Lenny, recently divorced, trying to figure out who he was outside of his marriage. They were all people at crossroads. People trying to figure out how to start over. And June seemed to be the quiet center of it all, offering coffee and conversation and the kind of gentle wisdom that helped people find their own answers rather than telling them what to do. I started bringing my laptop. Started using those afternoon hours at the Second Cup to write. Not clickbait articles for work, but the kind of journalism I actually cared about. I started small, a profile of a local activist working on housing issues. The writing was hard. I was rusty. My first drafts were terrible. But for the first time in years, I was excited about what I was working on. I was excited to show up at my laptop. I was thinking about stories during my commute, during my boring work hours, during my evenings. I was alive again in a way I'd forgotten I could be. June would come by my table sometimes, read over my shoulder, offer thoughts. She had this way of asking exactly the right question that would help me see what was missing or unclear in my writing. "This is good," she said one afternoon, reading a draft of the housing story. "You're finding your voice again." I forgot I had a voice. I'd spent so long writing in whatever style generated the most clicks that I forgot how to write like myself. It's still in there. You just had to remember. 6 weeks after I first walked into the Second Cup, I finished my first real piece of journalism in years. It was about the activist, a woman named Rosa, who'd been fighting for affordable housing in Phoenix for 2 decades. It was 4,000 words, deeply reported, with interviews and research and nuance. It was everything my BuzzStream work wasn't. I had no idea what to do with it. But I'd written it, and that felt like something. That evening, I showed it to Maeve. We were sitting on her couch, and I pulled out my laptop nervously. I wrote something different from my usual work. "I wanted you to read it." She read it while I sat next to her, anxious. When she finished, she had tears in her eyes. "Oliver, this is beautiful. This is the kind of writing I always knew you could do." "You think it's good?" "I think it's more than good. I think it's the best thing you've written in years." "What are you going to do with it?" "I don't know. I wrote it for myself, mostly. To prove I still could, you should pitch it somewhere. A real publication, not BuzzStream. Somewhere that would appreciate what this is." The idea terrified me. What if they rejected it? What if I wasn't as good as I thought I was? But June's words echoed in my head. Start doing the work you actually care about. See what happens. I pitched the story to an online magazine that focused on social justice issues. They responded in 2 days. They wanted to publish it. They'd pay $500, which was nothing compared to what I needed to live on, but it wasn't about the money. It was about the validation that I could still do this, that I hadn't completely lost myself. The story ran a week later. It got shared widely. People commented that they'd learned something, that they'd been moved to donate to Rosa's organization, that they wanted to read more work like this. I sat at the Second Cup the day it published, reading the comments on my phone, feeling something I hadn't felt in over a decade, pride in my work. June came over with a coffee. "I saw your story made quite an impact." "You read it?" "Of course I read it. I'm proud of you, Oliver. You did the hard thing. You started over. I don't know if one story counts as starting over. I still have my job at BuzzStream. I still spend most of my time writing clickbait. Starting over doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small choices made over and over. You made one today. You'll make another tomorrow. Eventually, those small choices add up to a completely different life. I sat with that for a moment. Then I asked the question I'd been wanting to ask for weeks. June, how did that receipt end up in my wallet? June smiled. Are you sure you want to know? Yes? All right. It was Mavie, your girlfriend. She came to me about 7 months ago. She'd found this cafe by accident, and we got to talking. She told me about you, how talented you were, how lost you'd become, how much it hurt her to watch you disappear into work you hated. I asked if there was anything I could do to help. She said you were so resigned to the fact that life was simply that you didn't allow yourself to think that something could be different. So I wrote that message on a receipt and gave it to her. She said she'd find a way to get it to you without making it obvious. I guess she slipped it into your wallet. My eyes stung. She did this 6 months ago? About that, yes. She said you'd find it when you were ready. Not a day before. Why didn't she just tell me to come here? Why the secret? Because you would have resisted if it came from her. You would have felt pressured or managed. But finding it yourself, coming here of your own choice, that was the only way it would work. Mavie understood that. She loved you enough to let you find your own way, even though I know it was hard for her to watch you struggle. I sat back in my chair, overwhelmed. Mavie had been carrying this for months, watching me be miserable, knowing about this place that might help, but waiting for me to be ready. Not pushing, not forcing, just trusting that when the time was right, I'd find my way here. I need to thank her, I said. I think she'd appreciate that. I drove straight to Mavie's apartment. She opened the door. Surprised to see me there. Oliver, is everything okay? June told me. About the receipt. About you going to the cafe. About you planting that message in my wallet and waiting for me to find it. Her expression shifted. Hope and nervousness mixed together. I didn't know if I should tell you. I was worried you'd be angry that I interfered. Angry? Maybe you saved me. I was drowning and you threw me a life raft without making me feel like I was drowning. Do you know how incredible that is? She teared up. I just couldn't watch you be so miserable anymore. But I knew if I pushed, you'd just push back. So I thought maybe if you found your way there on your own, it worked. God, it worked. I've been writing again. Real writing. I published a story. A real story that I'm actually proud of. And it all started because you cared enough to plan this whole thing. I'm so glad. I've seen you come alive again these past few weeks. It's been beautiful to watch. I don't know what I did to deserve you, but thank you. Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. Thank you for believing I could find my way back. She hugged me tightly. I always knew you could. You just needed to remember. That night, I made a decision. I opened my laptop and started outlining an idea that had been growing in my mind for weeks. A series of long-form pieces about people who'd started over. People who'd left careers, ended relationships, changed paths, and rebuilt their lives. Not feel-good, inspirational fluff. Real, honest, deeply reported stories about the messy, hard, beautiful process of beginning again. I'd call it second chances. The first piece would be about June in the second cup. About how she'd built this cafe after losing her husband 10 years ago. How she'd created a space where people at crossroads could find their way. How she'd quietly helped dozens of people, including me, remember who they were supposed to be. Over the next 2 months, I worked on the series in every spare moment. I quit my job at BuzzStream, a terrifying decision that Mavie supported completely, even offering to help with rent until I got established. I pitched second chances to an editor at a respected online publication who'd reached out after reading my housing piece. She loved the concept. The series launched in October. Each piece took weeks to report and write, the kind of deep, careful journalism I'd always wanted to do. The response was overwhelming. Readers connected with the honesty, with the hope, with the reminder that it's never too late to change direction. Publications started reaching out, asking me to write for them. I started getting paid better. Not BuzzStream money yet, but enough to live on. Enough to keep doing the work. 6 months after finding that receipt, I went back to the second cup on a Saturday morning. June was behind the counter as always. The usual? She asked with a smile. Yes, please. And I wanted to give you something. I handed her a printed copy of the first piece in the Second Chances series, the profile of her and the cafe. She read it right there at the counter, tears streaming down her face by the time she finished. Oliver, this is beautiful. You captured it perfectly. I wanted people to know about this place, about what you do here, about how you help people find their way back to themselves. You helped yourself. I just provided the coffee. You provided a lot more than coffee. You provided space and time, and the kind of gentle wisdom that helped me see what I needed to see. Thank you for that, and thank you for working with Mavie to get me here. That woman loves you very much, you know. I know. I'm lucky. June poured 2 cups of coffee, came around the counter, and sat with me at my usual table by the window. So what's next for you? She asked. More stories. More journalism that matters. Maybe eventually a book, a longer version of the Second Chances series. I don't know exactly, but I know I'm doing the work I'm supposed to be doing. Finally. That's all any of us can hope for, to find the work that makes us feel alive. To have the courage to do it even when it's scary. I wouldn't have found it without you. Without this place, you would have found it eventually. You just needed a push and a good cup of coffee. We sat in comfortable silence, drinking our coffee, watching the morning light stream through the windows. The cafe was starting to fill up with the Saturday regulars, people I'd come to know over the past months, people who, like me, had found their way here when they needed to remember something important about themselves. Maeve came in a little while later. She'd started coming to the second cup with me on weekends. June greeted her warmly, and Maeve joined us at the table. "How's the writing going?" she asked. "Good, really good. I'm working on a piece about a teacher who left corporate law to work with kids. It's going to be powerful." She squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you. You know that, right?" "I know, and I'm grateful. For you, for June, for this place. For that receipt you planted in my wallet a year ago, knowing I'd find it when I was ready. Were you ready when you found it?" Maeve asked. I thought about that. "No, I wasn't ready at all, but I came anyway." "And that made all the difference." June raised her coffee cup. "To starting over. Even when we're not ready." We clinked our cups together, and I looked around the cafe, at the people writing and reading and talking, at the warm light and the comfortable space, at June behind the counter and Maeve beside me. At this place that had somehow become home. I'd come here 6 months ago because of a mysterious receipt and a cryptic message. I'd come expecting nothing and found everything. A reminder of who I was supposed to be. The courage to do the work that mattered. The knowledge that starting over isn't about having all the answers. It's about being brave enough to ask the questions. The receipt that led me here is still in my wallet. I keep it as a reminder that sometimes the people who love us see what we need before we do. That sometimes we have to lose ourselves completely before we can find our way back. That sometimes a cup of coffee and a stranger's kindness can change everything. What did you think of Maeve and June's secret plan? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story about second chances, unexpected guidance, and finding your way back to yourself touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more meaningful stories every day. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss our next thought-provoking tale. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.